ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም።
ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ
በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ይቻላል።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና
ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና ባገኘንባቸው የፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን እና የሆስተስ ስልጠናም በምዝገባ ላይ ነን።
ጥያቄና መልስ፣ የክፍል ስራዎች ብሎም ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁ አይነት
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ
በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ።
አድራሻ ከ22 ማዞሪያ ወደ ሾላ ገበያ በሚወስደው መንገድ 150 ሜትር ገባ ብሎ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
Good. So yesterday, again, after going through the assignments that we had done, that is 1 and 2, we also did illustrations on the areas so far that we've covered, but with a particular concentration on costs, budgets, and variance analysis. So we went through the first 2 illustrations, and we were to go through the second, the third, and the fourth illustration. And then the 5th illustration was for your own practice. So I just want us to take time to go through the illustration 3 and illustration 4, which are actually areas of variance analysis. They are addressing the areas of variance analysis. You recall the first illustration was all inclusive. We talked about all the variances, but you realize there are questions that you may get that they may just ask you for variance from one area. For example, if it's labor, if it's material, or if it's overhead, all right, or if it's sales. So you can get a question that will just ask you a variance for 1 or 2 areas, and not all of them like we did in our last illustration when we are looking at variance analysis. So you realize that the illustration 4 is actually about labor. Illustration 5, which you have to practice, about material, and even 3 is about material. So let's go through them. So in case that there are any issues, we can address them. And as I had promised, we hope come God willing next weekend, we shall introduce a new area, which is CVP analysis. Okay, so I just want to share the illustration. Illustration 3, we are asked to calculate wages variance, wages rate variance, and labor efficient variance. So wages is the same as labor. You know, some books or some questions you may find wages referred to as labor or direct labor, and other books referring to wages. So it's the same thing. When you find some books referring to it as wages, as referring to it as labor, they do the same work, and it all depends on the author of the book, and some they call it what, some regional way of identifying things, like you find in Americans authors refer to stock as inventories, and the British authors refer to stock as stock, you know. So they are talking about the same thing, receivables and debtors, payables and creditors. Those are terms that refer to the same thing, but because of the authors, you realize they are referring to the same thing, but talking in different terms. Okay, so we've been asked to determine the wages wages variance, which is a wages cost variance, labor efficient variance, and then the wages rate variance. Wages rate variance. Now, we need to understand the formulas to determine this, and you remember what we agreed last time when you are looking at the variances. We said we always start with the budgeted or the standard figures so that we compare with the actual we have realized to determine our variance. Okay. Please, all of us, let's mute our mics. Jamila, can you mute your mic? Okay. So we've been given the actual work, hours worked, which is 4,000, the standard rate, the actual wages, and then the standard hours produced. So these are things that the figures that we've been given, and we have to use these. So we have the standard figures and we have the actual figures that we've been given. And then we need to use this to determine our wages cost variance. So from our definition, we know wages cost variance is given as standard wages minus actual wages, minus actual wages. And then for wages rate variance, we know it is the wages rate variance is given as standard rate per hour, standard rate per hour minus actual rate per hour times actual hours, And then our labor efficiency variance is given as standard hours produced minus actual hours used, right, times standard rate. Okay, so actual hours is 4,000. Standard rate is 0.2. Actual wages is 1,120, and then standard hours produced is 3,800. Okay, so having collect that, allow me to go to the whiteboard. Now, question number one, after being given that data, the actual hours is 4,000, the standard rate is 0.2, the actual wages is 1,120, the standard hours produced is 3,800. So we've been asked to determine the wages variance. You can call it wages cost variance. So we have been told it's given as standard wages standard wages. I'll use the initial, but you know what I mean, standard wages. Standard wages minus actual, minus actual, minus actual wages. Okay, so from our data, we can identify the standard wages. How do you determine the standard wages? Okay, standard wages is determined, the standard wages minus actual wages. How do you determine the standard wages? The standard rate by the, okay, you see, standard wages is given by standard hours produced times standard rate per hour. Standard hours produced times standard rate per hour. Okay, so standard rate, standard wages is equals to actual hours or standard hours produced, standard hours produced okay, times standard rate. So this is equals to, our standard hours produced was 3,800 times standard rate, which is 0.2.
0.0.
0.2. Please alert me if I'm wrong. Is that 760? Yeah. Standard hours produced times standard rate, you get our standard wages. So our standard rate is 0.2, and standard hours produced is 3,800. So our actual hours, we already been given. What is our actual hours? 4,000, isn't it? So actual hours. Actual wages, sorry, actual wages is equals to 1,120. Therefore, our wages cost variance is equals to the standard wages, which is 7 times 760 minus 1,120, which will give us 360. 360. Now 360 is negative. What does that mean? Is it favorable or unfavorable?
Unfavorable. Unfavorable.
Unfavorable. It's unfavorable because it's negative, isn't it? This is greater than this, so when you less this from this, you get a negative. So a negative means unfavorable. Unfavorable. Sometimes you can just indicate you. All right, let me show you. When you indicate you, you just put in bracket U. So U means unfavorable. All right, you don't have to write in full. You'll find some books, instead of writing U, they write A. A means adverse, isn't it? Adverse is the same as unfavorable. So some books write adverse. Adverse means it's negative, isn't it? Adverse means the variance is negative. It's not favorable, right? So some books write adverse instead of unfavorable. So they mean the same thing. So it's either favorable or unfavorable, all right? Or favorable or adverse. Okay, I hope I'm clear there. So when you see other books writing A, they are just referring to unfavorable, as we have indicated here. So U means unfavorable. You don't have to write in full, wherever the case. Okay, so that is our wages cost variance. And then our wages, this is 1. 2, wages rate variance is given as standard rate per hour, standard rate per hour minus actual rate per hour. Actual rate per hour. So our standard rate per hour, we've been told is 0.2. Then, okay, so all this you multiply by actual hours. Actual hours. So it is 0.2 minus actual rate. Now, how do you determine actual rate? Okay, Actual rate is, if you know the actual hours, which is 4,000, and our actual wages paid is 1,120. So if for you to determine the rate, you take the total wages paid divided by, so it is 1,120 divided by 4,000 hours. So this is the total cost over the total hours to get our rate. So you get that, all right? And then now you multiply by actual hours. The actual hours were 4,000. So am I right, guys? If I'm wrong somewhere, you tell me. So when you divide this, because now the board mass has to apply here, you have to open the inner bracket first, then you work on the outer one, then you multiply, all right? So this will give us 0.2 minus 0.28. 0.28 is this divided by this, all right? And then now you multiply by 4,000. So you work with the inner bracket first, which is 0.2 minus 0.28, which is negative 0.08. That is negative 0.08. So times, okay, times where am I? Oh. So now 0.8 times 4,000. So that will give us negative 320. And because it's negative, our variance is unfavorable. Are we together? Is it making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what you do. You have to get the rate. You realize you are not given this rate directly, so you have to use the figures that you've been given, sorry, to determine the rate that will stand for the actual rate. Then now you're already been given the standard. So when you less, you get the difference between the rates, and then multiplied by the hours, the actual hours used. And then you realize this is negative, right? Actually, it will give us negative 320. And then because it's negative, it's unfavorable. Good. So I can erase this this part so that we have space to write our part 3 of the question. So 3, we've been asked to determine the wages efficiency or labor efficiency variance. And we know it is standard hours produced minus actual hours used so multiply by times standard rate. So our standard hours, we saw there were 3,800. Our actual hours were 4,000. Then mine times standard rate is 0.2. So you open the bracket first. So it is 3,800 minus 4,000. You will get your negative 200. So this will give us negative 200 times 0.2. And this will give us what? 0.2, 40, all right, negative 40. So negative 40, you can see this negative and you are dealing with cost. Therefore, it becomes what? U or F?
U.
It becomes U, okay?
U.
Because it's negative and we are dealing with the cost. If it were revenue, then it would have been F. If it were sales, all right? But because you're dealing with cost, then it becomes U. So that is what you are expected to do in that illustration number 3. And if there are any questions, just raise before we go to illustration number 4. Any questions? Okay, so let's go to illustration number 4. Okay, so all our answers are correct, unfavorable, unfavorable, unfavorable. Good. So 4, from the information given below, calculate the material usage variance, the wage efficiency variance. So we have the material usage variance, the wage efficiency variance or labor efficiency variance, and then material price variance and wage rate variance. So you can see these are mixed. So you have been asked to determine the wages, and then again in there you'll be asked to get the material. So you can get a question that will require you to determine 2 or 1 area of the costs, either material, labor, or overheads. All right. So you've been given the figures there, the actual hours the actual hours worked, 5,000. The standard rate per hour is 10. The actual wages paid is 55,000. Standard hours allowed is 4,850. Standard price per kg is 2. Actual price per kg is 1.5. Actual output is 20,000 units. Standard quantity allowed is 16,000 kgs. Actual quantity used is 15,000 kgs. Actual quantity purchased is 16,500 kgs. Okay, so you've been given a lot of information there that will help you determine these variances. So we know material usage variance is given as standard quantity allowed minus actual quantity used. All right, times standard price. Okay, times standard price. And then we have the wages efficient variance is given as the standard hours allowed minus actual hours worked. All right, times standard rate. Then material price variance is given as standard price minus actual price times actual quantity used. And then lastly, wages rate variance is given as standard rate per hour minus actual rate per hour times actual hours. Okay, so with that information, we can now go back to our whiteboard. Okay, so we can erase this. So number one, we've been asked to determine the material usage variance. And we know it's given as standard quantity allowed
minus
minus, yes. Actual quantity used. Actually, quantity. Let me use Q instead of writing the formula used. So Q stands for quantity. Actual Q used. All right. So in bracket. Times. Yeah. Standard rate. Standard price. Standard price. Yes. Okay. So if you check in the data that the information that we've been given, do we have standard quantity allowed? Yes. We have been given. So this is 16,000.
60,000.
It's material usage allowance, 16,000.
Yeah.
16,000 minus the actual, we've been given actual quantity
15,000.
used, 15,000.
50,000.
Okay. Then times standard price of material is two, yes, $2. Okay. Yeah. So when you minus this, you'll get this times 16 minus 15 is 1, all right? Times 2, that is it. Hey, 1,000, isn't it? 1,000 times 2 is 2,000. So 2,000 is what? Favorable or unfavorable? Huh? F or U?
Favorable. F.
F. All right. F.
Yeah.
So that is our. So you realize, you know, some people fear when they are given a lot of information like this, they avoid the question, and yet these are things that you can just pick directly, and so long as you know the formula, all right? So this one is given directly. Otherwise, you would find like what you are doing last time. You have to compute some figures to get this, or what you've just done in question 3, where you have to determine the rate by using the figure that have been given before you can now complete your formula. But you see, this one, everything is given directly, so it's just picking and substituting. Now 2, wages, efficiency, variance. We know it's given as standard wages allowed, standard hours allowed, standard hours allowed, minus actual hours worked,
actual allowed. Hours.
Actual hours are allowed or worked. Is it allowed or worked? Actual hours worked. Allowed.
Allowed.
Actual is actually allowed. What has already been allowed. Actual hours worked. You see, actual is always what has allowed. Already been. Huh? What is the difference between allowed and worked?
Allowed is the can be taken as the budgeted one.
Yes. And
planned
worked is now the actual. So what are we talking
The
about?
performed
Is
one.
it worked or allowed? Huh? Are we talking about allowed or worked?
No, the allowed. The allowed is the budgeted one. The worked
Yes.
one is the actually performed one.
So in this formula of mine, wages
Yes.
efficient variance, is it allowed actual hours are worked or actual hours allowed? This point here, is this one supposed to be allowed or worked?
Worked.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Somebody was saying allowed. Okay, so you must be clear in your formula so that you avoid confusion. Allowed is like is what is budgeted, but you see, allowed can be over or below. I mean, actual can be over or below the allowed. Standard rate, wages efficient rate is standard rate per hour. So this is standard hours allowed is
4,850.
standard hours allowed 4,850. Minus actual hours worked is
5,000.
5,000.
5,000.
Is the first item there? 5,000. Standard rate per hour is 10.
10, yeah.
Okay, so you do the minusing first. You open the bracket first. So 4,850 minus 5,000. You get 150, negative 150. Negative 150, so is equals to
Yes.
negative 150 times 10, which is 1,500.
Times 10.
1,500.
Yeah.
And this is actually, you check here, you find this one is lesser than this. So this, our answer is U or F. Our answer is U or F.
U.
U. It's unfavorable.
U.
Huh? Unfavorable. Am I right?
Yes.
Am I right? Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Unfavorable. Unfavorable. Okay. 3. If you have any question and whatever. Yes? Please unmute. Please mute your mics unless you are asking a question. Eshetu, please. Eshetu.
Doctor, you can unmute him from your side. You can unmute him from your side.
I'm trying, okay. But I don't know who it is, but anyway, please let all of us mute our mics. Unless you're asking a question, then you can unmute. Or you're giving a comment or a clarification, then you can unmute. So material price variance is given as standard price. I said we always start with the standard or budgeted because that is the benchmark. Standard price minus actual price. Of course, this price of material, actual price. Okay, and then times standard price or times actual price used. Actual price. Now, so our standard price for raw materials is 2. That standard price per kg is 2 minus the actual price per kg is 1.5. Okay. Then times actual it's actual quantity used. That is that 15. So 2 minus 1.5 is 0.5 times 15,000 to 7,500. So 7,500. Is that correct? You
Yes,
have
doctor.
you have to open the bracket first by getting this from 2, which is 0.5, and then times 15 is just a half of 15, which is so is this favorable or unfavorable? Who can tell
Favorable.
me? F or U?
It's favorable.
F.
Favorable.
F. F is favorable, meaning you can see 2 is greater than 1.5. Okay. So you just check here and you realize that your answer will be positive, and because of positive, then it's favorable. Okay. So I can erase the first one so that I have space to do the fourth one. We've been asked to determine wages rate variance. Wages rate variance. It's given as standard rate per hour minus actual rate per hour. Then multiply by actual hours. Actual hours used. So our standard rate per hour from data given is 10. Our actual rate per hour, actual rate Now, how do you determine the actual rate per hour? Okay, now this is also where we need now to, because you have not been given directly, the actual rate per hour. We know the actual hours worked. Okay, we know the actual hours worked is 5,000, and then the what else? What did we use? The actual wages paid. We also know the actual wages paid. So we can always determine the rate. So by taking the actual wages paid, which is 55,000, divided by the actual hours worked, which is 5,000. So times actual hours worked, 5,000. Okay, actual hours worked is 5,000. So this will give us now, if you have to work out the bracket first, and you start with the division. You remember board mass? So you always start with division. So you divide this first before you subtract. Okay, so 55 divided by 5, that is 11. 11, so you get 11, so it's 10. 10 minus 11, so this is equals to 10 minus 11 times 5,000. So this is -1. -1, because 10 minus 11 is -1, times 5 is 5,000. -5,000. And because it's negative, it is U, unfavorable. So these are in dollars. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any question? Yes, question? Yes. Any clarification? So you need to practice a lot on this. These have been actually basically wages or labor and materials. But you can also practice with the sales and overheads. Basically, those are the items, wages, wages, material, overheads, and then the sales. But of course, sales, the interpretation differs. When it's a negative like this, then that is an F. It's favorable because we are supposed to be surpassing the standard. We are supposed to be surpassing the standard, you know. So when you surpass the standard, then we are doing better for the organization. And that's what changes here, because our analysis, we are analyzing the sales. But when you are analyzing cost, then if our benchmark is lower than what is incurred, then it's unfavorable for the organization. Okay, so so any questions about variance analysis or so far areas we've covered? Any general question? So try the illustration 5 on your own. Yes?
I have one question. In the given information, actual quantity per given in the variance calculation, this information, what is the purpose? That's
the one that we've just done.
Yeah, actual quantity purchased is given in the
actual
calculation.
Oh, you're asking me the purpose of giving you this?
Yeah, in this calculation, in what condition variance to use this information?
Yes. You see, sometimes you may be given information just to confuse you, right?
Okay.
But if you understand your formula and you understand the variables that needs to be fed in that formula of yours, then you pick what is relevant and leave out whatever is irrelevant. Because probably the person who set a question just picked a data from the organization's information or system, but then now he only asked about these variances to be computed. But if you are to go further, then you would be asked to there are other variances probably that you may use this. But for now, look at the question, what is being asked for, and then the right formula, get the right figures from what you've been given and use that. Forget about those ones that you have not used, as long as you're sure of what you're doing. Some figures are just there to confuse you, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like where did we use now the 20,000 actual output? Okay. The 20,000 actual output. But you see, if you are, like, you remember what last time what you are computing, you could use this if you are to get a ratio of what has been completed in the standard form. So the output is 20, but now, like, when you to determine the standard hours or the standard usage, then you have to use the output, all right? Yeah. But in this case, you're given the figure directly, so you don't have to go that way, all right? But there are those ones who know that they have to go that way, and they can still use this, but they'll still arrive at the same figure. Okay. So things are simplified here for you, all right? Just understand the formula and use the right figures to feed in the right formula, then you'll be good to go. Forget about the figures that you've not used. Probably somebody else may use them and still arrive at the same answer, all right? Somebody else may use them but still arrive at the same answer. But all matters, what matters is you understand the formula and pick the right information or compute the right data, compute the right figure from the right information you've been given so that you can get the right figures to use in your formula.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Yes. Any other question? So can you, do you have any issues with the illustration 5, which you have to try on your own, and many others? You're not only restricted to that. You can go through the textbook I sent you and pick on any. Just try working on them and see what you get. And as much as you do that, try also to figure out what steps you could take as a manager to address the unfavorable cases. All right. And last time we agreed that you also have to look at also the favorable cases. But you also, the major concern should be the extreme figures which are material. So the variance, the unfavorable that is material is now what you think of how can we improve on that, and what measures can we put in place to ensure that we reduce the materiality in the unfavorable figures. Okay. So any other comment? Now, Moges, Gema, are you there?
Yes, doctor.
Yes. You have anything to say?
Not at all, doctor.
Okay, so next time we're introducing a new area, which is CVP analysis, but we are not going to avoid speaking about some of these things that we've been talking about all along. Like, it's actually, we are going to have to talk about cost. We have to talk about sales. We have to talk about price. We have to talk about the activity levels, because when you talk about volume, you are basically talking about the levels of output, all right? And or the levels of sales that we need to make. So when you talk about CVP, actually stands for cost, CVP, cost, volume, profit analysis. So we know profit is a function of cost and sales, all right? So if we have to determine our profit, then we have to talk about cost and we have to talk about the sales, all right? And vice versa. So all these things are related, and that's why you cannot talk about CVP before understanding some of these things that we've been doing from the time we started, particularly the costing. Then the sales are actually what you're going to use a lot. And then issues of classification of costs, like the marginal cost. We are going to talk more about the marginal cost when we are talking about CVP, and the contribution. So we want to evaluate the unit's contribution on the organization's profit. So if we add additional unit of output, what percentage increase in profit are we going to have? All right. So you also have to look at the added cost to produce one extra unit. Okay, and many others, which we are going to look at when you're looking at the CVP analysis. Okay, with that, if we don't have any question, then I can request that we stop there for today. And I wish you a blessed week ahead. And we meet Saturday, God willing. Okay.
Stay safe.
Thank you, doctor.
Stay safe.
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Thank you.
Have a good day, sir.
And
Thank you,
take care of
doctor.
yourselves. Bye.
Thank you.
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ MBA በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ MBA በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ MBA በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ MBA በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ MSc በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።